So we had it dead out. Not unusual, but what was unusual is this was a very strong hive. They hadn't really eaten through all the sugar, and they had tons of honey, about 40 pounds of it in this hive. It was a strong hive. Acylic acid treatment, last one we did, 0 mite count. No indication of any type of brood disease. So what did these guys in? Well, if you're an old-time beekeeper, you already know the answer. So we'll take a look at this. We go a little further into the hive, and what do we find? Oh, mice have gotten after this a little bit. I gotta disperse these guys. But what was in here, it isn't here anymore, is brood. This queen in November, which was kind of mellow, was laying up a storm. Once the temperature dropped in December, and it stayed, super cold for a couple of weeks, the bees formed a tight cluster around that brood. They didn't even venture out to find the honey. If you have a warm day, they'll venture around and find it. If it's cold enough, though, they'll protect that brood and they'll protect that queen. And they literally stayed in this area until they starved. There was about 3 pounds of bees in this hive before I swept it out. This was not a weak colony at all. It had enough to generate warmth. But what will happen is, on a warm day, when you have a break in the winter, remembering bees are a tropical insect, they'll venture around the hive and they'll actually move honey into that area. That didn't happen. It was just too cold for too long. So this queen, unlike most queens, didn't really slow down in November. She kept laying up a storm. And, sadly enough, you see all the bees with their heads in the cells. I don't know whether you can see the little butts of their abdomen sticking out. That's a sign of starvation. They're going into the cell, they're cleaning it out, and they're staying in there for warmth, and eventually that can't be sustained. So what we have to do real fast is take the honey from this hive and stick it in a couple of the other hives out there that might be a little low. Otherwise, wax moths, hive beetles, and I can already see some mice have been in here, will just eat up all the resources. So today we're going to take this and we're going to move the frames that have some honey on them into some of the hives that might have empty frames in them. So here's what you would normally expect. The bees are around the hive. It's a little bit warmer today. They're eating the sugar cake. I got to chase them down a little bit with smoke in order to put another sugar cake in there without squishing too many. On the other hand, is a very strong hive. Lots of bees in there. I'm not sure I can even get sugar cake in there. We'll try to give them a little bit of smoke. Try to get them to go maybe away from the area where I'm going to slip in the sugar cake. I actually, hate smoking them at this time of year. I don't really want to alert them, but I do want to open this up, and I don't want to lose too many bees in the process of putting more sugar in there. Here is a more stereotypical situation where there just was an insufficient cluster to make it. That is more common. This hive was actually very aggressive, but apparently they didn't populate out too well coming into the fall. And we had basically a fistful of bees in there that were left. They had sugar, they had honey, but I don't think they made it through the cold. There's just not enough of a cluster. Ed is checking out our front hive, trying to chase the bees down. This one's very nice, but
they're not chasing
they don't want to
very
go
well
down.
Right yeah,
we're going to put a couple of frames of honey in there on that one. Let's go. So as beekeepers, we'd love to have no dead outs, but that just isn't the reality of the situation.
unfortunately.
We still have 12 strong hives. Well, let me correct that. 10 strong hives and a couple that are a little questionable. But wintertime doesn't mean you stop. If you have a dead hive, you want to move the resources into other hives that can use it. And they actually were fairly calm. the ones that were clustered, we were able to sneak the frames in on the side without disturbing the cluster. And we continue on through the winter. Early winter this year. We have a slightly warm day today, so they're having fun. Or at least most of the hives are. Some of them have decided it's still too cold for them to do anything. Sorry we haven't had too many videos up lately, but we've had concert season, 18 jobs in 2 months, and a little exhausted, no time to edit anything. I do have a video I want to do about those new varroa mites, and also we have a video to put up at some point of Ed making the sugar cakes. Have the snow awnings in place, and we've had a little coverage of a couple of the dead outs that we found and why they happened. And hopefully we won't have any more, but there's a couple of hives that I'm afraid aren't going to make it. But it's a rough winter this winter. It's a serious winter that we haven't had in a few years. And we've done what we can bringing them into the winter, but what happens inside the hive, you can't really do midwinter inspections when it's like 15 or 20 degrees out. There's some people that drag them inside and inspect them, and more power to them, but the house is quite a ways away, and I think the trip in there would cause more trouble than anything else. And we had a rough winter this winter, that's for sure. Some extreme cold snaps. So the real question I'm sure everybody's wondering is, how did we do as far as losses went? Well, after the fall consolidation, we went into winter with 12 hives. And right now we have 7. I'll call it 40 to 50% loss. Number 7, the last hive there, maybe a zombie hive. So, I mean, there were a lot of dead bees in it. There were some live bees. Couldn't really find a queen, couldn't really find brood. So they may actually be dead, but haven't quite fallen over yet. The other 6 hives, brood, food, honey, lots of bees, queens running around, etc., etc. So I'm happy about that. When you have a rough winter, you play catch up. The genetics of the bees, the ones that would have maybe not made it through a prior winter, don't make it through the rough winter, so the losses tend to be a little higher. There's one other thing that they had in common. The ones that we lost were all Italian bees, and they all were attempting to raise brood in the cold and stayed clustered around the brood and starved, a lot of them. The ones that survived all were darker bees that we used to call European or midnight bees. Are used to a colder climate than the Italian bees that are, genetically from a very tropical environment. So it was interesting to see that the European honeybees are the ones that made it through no problem, knew what to do in the cold weather. Italian bees often can make it through a nice winter, but we had some brutally cold and windy periods of time, and they just stuck with their brood, and unfortunately didn't find the honey that was a few inches away. But I'm happy. We got 6 hives that seem to be really, blasting along, raising brood, getting ready for the upcoming season. We made sure that there's plenty of, pollen patties and sugar in there, and hopefully we can start splitting these guys. They're getting pollen somewhere out there. They're bringing it in. I mean, it's March 10th. I don't know what's in bloom. There must be some trees supplying pollen. I don't know. But we hope to get more on a schedule of actually producing these videos and getting them out. But I just wanted to give you a fast summary as to where we are at Buzz Park. See you next time. Bye-bye.